Yes, so welcome to the Vanguard Show on podcast, episode number 14th. My name is Malik Ishmael, and my co host Kathy, she's out and about today, but we're definitely happy to have a talented young man named Das Leune. And like I said, let me give a little time to talk about some of the things he is actually. He's a filmmaker, photographer. He's a director's assistant. He's a New Era Panther, a revolutionary. He's also a son and a proud father. And I want to just welcome you to the Vanguard Show, brother. How you doing?
Oh man, Malik, I just want to say thank you so much for having me, and that was an amazing introduction. I can't thank you more for that. Uh, I mean, I really appreciate you having me on the show, man. Like you've had some great guests in the past that I've watched and whatnot, but I've also done a little bit of research on your history. I picked up your book, which I haven't got to
Oh,
fully read yet, but man, I'm super impressed by the things that you do. Like very impressed, bro.
man, thank you so much. And I want to give a shout out to Capitan Lobo. He's the one who first got me
Hmm.
interested and got me hip to some of the work you're doing, man, with the Brown Berets. And I want to give him a shout out along with brother Kamal Osiris, who also is a big fan of yours. I don't know if you know him, but he actually worked in the Midwest, in the Midwest Chicago, Indiana area. And I want to dedicate this show to Gregory Everett. He just died of COVID 19. He was a friend and a close colleague of mine, and he directed the film documentary 41st and Central, which I hope you at some point get a chance to see. But I want to definitely dedicate the show to them as well as their legacies. The first question I have for you, brother, this is one of the most heavily anticipated films, in my opinion, since Spike Lee's Malcolm X, and or
Oh
even
wow.
Mario Van Peebles' film Panther. Do you sense the buzz around Judas and the Black Messiah, the film that you worked on?
Uh, yeah, man. Today's political narrative has been proven to be twisted and tormented so much as far as the political history of the advancement of our people. And I feel like, as far as the narrative piece explaining the direction that the Panthers were approaching, it's one of those films to where it's very super long overdue, and I'm super thankful to be a part of the process, but I also feel the buzz because of the political environment that we're currently attributed to. So it's one
Right.
of those things to where, the time, the energy and the stars align and everything, and we kind of get the advantage of being provocative in a way that is naturally inducing some sort of provocative train of progressive thought. So I mean, I think that I definitely feel the sensationalism behind it, but
Right.
more than that, I feel the the legacy being uprooted, and kind of the mentors being, called out of the shadows that once were because of this environment. So hopefully the buzz does do something progressive, but I definitely feel it, and it's an overwhelming feeling, but at the same time, the responsibility is on all of us to take it as we can as far as an educational process. So,
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And tell me, how did you get involved with the film project from the beginning?
well, I I've been taking pictures and shooting short community documentaries for years, just explaining kind of the narrative of where people's oppression comes from, and ways to find resources out of it and whatnot. And while doing that, I got a small notoriety in a small developed Portland film community out here where I'm at in Portland. And I was able to work on a TV show called Shrill, and
Okay.
it was a Hulu show, but Shaka King was the director on that show. And me and him kind of just like built this relationship during the filming of that show, a lot because of the environment that we're in currently is in Oregon. It's just predominantly white, so there's not a lot of room for conversation in these particular fields.
Okay.
There's redlining and a lot of other shit that happened in Oregon that kind of like separated these more beneficial attributed jobs to like different people. So I had an advantage in being in his world while he was filming, and I just simply started asking questions. He told me that he was thinking about doing this Black Panther project, and I had given him some history about my roots with the Black Panther Party and how I had learned some things from David Hilliard and uh, Erica Huggins and Elaine Brown out in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he was like, if this Panther movie works out, I'll send you the script and I'd love to get you on it because you seem like you'd be a helpful resource.
Okay,
That's
wow.
kind of what did it.
Okay. And what was your interaction with Ryan Coogler, who was also, I think, executive producer of the film?
Yeah, Ryan Coogler, man, that man's a genius.
Oh yeah.
Shaka is a genius. Like
Oh yeah.
Charles King, a lot of people they don't uplift these names in the way that I think we should today because they do provide this environment to tell these narrative stories and to like kind of resemble what we see as progress. And Ryan's one of those innovative people that has, I mean, built
Yeah.
things like Wakanda and Black Panther, but previous to that, he was elaborating on Oscar Grant's story with
Oh
Fruitvale Station,
yeah.
and
And
that's
you
a
see, I got the Oakland shirt, so
I
that's
sure do.
yeah,
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 yep. And
yeah.
I'll be there soon. As a matter of fact, we're doing some filming. I can't talk specifically about what yet, but we'll be doing some filming out in Oakland, connecting with some people out there, and kind of trying to broaden projects in the same way. But Ryan
Okay.
Coogler, that's I mean that's where he's from, and one of the big things that happened on set is I was trying to understand my growth and my process and why I was there and what I was doing and how to navigate correctly in this world that's predominantly white based and
Right.
whatnot. And I asked him, I said, with all the success that you've had and everything that you've done, like, where do you plan on going? Where are you gonna live? Like, where do you go?
Right.
Where does Ryan Coogler live at the end of the day?
Right.
And he explained something to me that kind of showed me who he is as a person and what his character attributes um, kind of hold as far as his character development personally. And he said that he just wants to stay home and make it better in Oakland.
Okay, I got
He's a
you.
man who has an opportunity to do so much, but he's so deeply rooted in the success and the uplifting of our people that
Right.
it's like second nature just to automatically, build up from the ground up, from the roots up.
Okay.
So that was one of those things to where uh, I got a chance to be around one of my heroes, and Ryan Coogler is definitely
Wow.
one of those people because of his way of storytelling and whatnot.
Wow.
But he's
Yeah.
an amazing person, and it was crazy to be around people that wealthy in an industry that's not built that way.
Well, he's from Oakland, where they have a revolutionary Nile of consciousness there. Not only because of the
Right.
Panther Party, but also because of the movements around the student movements. The Bay Area seems to be really a hornet's nest of revolutionary consciousness, and I will
Hmm.
recommend you check out the 55th anniversary of the Black Panther Party. Will be in October of this year.
Okay.
Hopefully everything will be safe, just to make sure. But I definitely would
Yep.
highly recommend that.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely make my way out there. I've been having conversations with a couple people that we're working on projects with. But as the ideas come in, I'm trying to fill up my calendar on the most productive, progressive ways to be beneficial to each of our organizations, internationally and just all over the place. In whatever way we can build these resources, I feel like that's what this film is, an introduction to finding those people who are strong enough to like help build those resources naturally without looking back on what they're gaining, if that makes sense.
It does, it does. And I want to talk about some of the, I guess, Sundance reviews and some of the buzz around Daniel Kaluuya's performance, Lakeith Stanfield, his performance as William O'Neill.
Mm.
There's a large buzz about Dominique Fishback's performance as Deborah
Hmm.
Johnson, who I know and I work with as Akua and Jerry. Tell us about some of
Hmm.
the performances that you saw on the set.
I mean, on the set, we had Mama Cord there, and we had Fred Hampton Jr. there on set, and it was one of those situations to where it was overwhelming as far as the energy that took place in multiple scenes. I
Right.
mean, the transparency that they had in their emotions as far as individuals, but being able to delegate what that look like to other people, I mean, it's an amazing process to watch in real time, and it's not exactly what you expect when you see it on film,
Right.
but the power is there in multiple ways, and it's a beautiful medium, and especially with people like Dominique Fishback, who comes from a world of like writing and poetry and whatnot, and can elaborate into this world of storytelling that's kind of manifesting beauty in its fullest potential. And
Okay.
so I feel like it brought a certain dynamic to the film that wouldn't naturally have been there had we not elaborated on the female perspective predominantly and the
Okay.
growth of that. So
Okay.
Dominique being the powerful person that she is, the powerful character she's been in Project Power and many other movies. I mean, she's a powerhouse and she's a beautiful and talented person. But she's one of those people that taught us a lot. And she was able to have a lot of conversations that made a lot of people empathetic to certain parts of the script that I mean, we didn't previously understand until they came from a woman's perspective. So
Okay, and for those who may not have looked at any previews or maybe not as aware of the film, give us the gist, the basics of what the movie is about.
so the movie's about the interruption of the Black Panther Party and its process in the most violent, brutal way of oppression, which is like psychological deterioration of the education that was built.
Right.
It's a movie to where it shows the dynamic range of individuals and characters and how they each play a part in each other's privilege, progress, failure, uh, growth.
Right.
But it's also like it's a deliberate story on how America and the FBI are predominant factors in dismantling the infrastructure of progress that's built time and time again by Black culture.
Right.
So it, it's it's a film that contextualizes the independency of a person's revolutionary mind in many different facets.
Okay.
But it's basically about Fred Hampton, a 21-year-old Panther who was taken advantage of by his own people in the end and assassinated with the help of informants that he was close to, that he felt close to, that were in his own community, but more than that, the FBI and the American government, who are afraid of this person who could unify people of many different backgrounds into a multicultural, multi-dimensional anti-capitalism format that we could use to build our people.
Okay. All right. And I did notice during the previews a young lady with the big afro. Her name is Dominique Thorne. Even though she's in physically is very small or diminutive, it seemed like her whole afro and aura filled the screen. And even when she
Oh,
was holding the preview of the shotgun out the window,
yep.
she gave a very impactful impression on me. And talk about some of these other performances. Clemens and Sister Thorne, Sanders, Brother Smith, and others. Just the whole cast.
Man, everybody was ridiculously exceptional in their own way, but there's certain behind the scenes things that happen that I'm not even sure I'm specifically allowed to talk about. But
Okay.
there's characters that you're gonna hate. There's the J. Edgar Hoovers and the the Jesse Plemons and Martin Sheen plays J. Edgar Hoover, but
Oh, yes.
in real life, Martin Sheen was donating to the Boys and Girls Club out in Cleveland, and he was explaining his own history of political activism while he was on set, and he
Oh,
was
wow.
having these conversations with a bunch of different people about how the progressive nature has changed throughout the years,
Okay.
and,
Wow.
stuff like that. But it's like we're all able to have that time to communicate with each other where we're at mentally, but also have that time of growth and be like, how can we develop more in real time, as well as like them transferring those messages into into film code,
Oh,
you know,
right.
into like something that everybody can generalize. But
Okay.
I mean, Lakeith Stanfield was one of the most amazing actors I've ever seen
Wow. Yeah.
on a set.
Hmm.
The heartbreak that went through that man every time he had to do something that was deceitful, condescending, negative, was in real life tormenting and like hard to watch. And
Yeah.
I had seen friends that have done this type of shit in real life to people and hadn't felt this way. And this man's acting, just reenacting situations.
Wow.
But everybody was severely connected to the story in the most beautiful way. Chairman Fred had so much impact that, I mean, in today's world, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. sat us all down
Yeah.
multiple times and went over 10-point program with us, what it meant to be upholding this legacy.
Yeah.
And the Dominique Thorns and everybody else, they engulfed all those messages and they took it with them, not only to set, but into real life. And so some of those facial movements that they make, some of the emotion that you see
Yeah.
is is super, super, super raw in my opinion.
Okay.
Just almost as raw as the situation would be if it was, how can I put it? Um if it, if it was some sort of simulation, if
Okay.
you had been
Right.
intimidated by a simulation.
Right.
Like the emotion was so raw within these actors and actresses. And I mean, Chip Sheffield, there's a guy named Chip and he plays a Panther in the movie.
Hmm.
He plays Bobby, and this character is literally one of the Panthers out in Portland, Oregon right now. I mean, their demeanor, the way that they act, their
Yeah.
features, but in history, you'll find another Panther that resembles the same person. And it's
Wow.
like we carry these same character attributes, but we actually like we're able to cast the right people, the perfect people for every role, so that people felt that connection. Algie Smith plays Jake Winters, and it's
Right.
one of those really heartbreaking, brutal stories of somebody who's ridiculously just disheveled, like in disarray and disbelief at what the world is. And today, a lot of the youth, they feel the same way. And that character just, he's able to exist in a world where he can portray what it's like to
Mhm.
be that kid. And that's amazing to me because the people that can do that, they help us benefit from growth in a way that we don't naturally know.
Okay. And do you think this will definitely resonate with the youth today who don't really have that kind of uh, 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 draft of history in terms of historical events and how the system is set up and so on and so forth. So do you think in terms of the youth today, you think they'll be able to understand and really get it, what this is all about?
Um, I hope so. I mean, to a degree. My daughter's 14 years old, and she goes out and she helps out with the food programs that we do with the party out here and whatnot. And she's super inspired by the growth in the community, but also the privilege of being able to connect with the community and understand other people's perspectives and hear stories and whatnot. So, I mean, I think for the kids that are already attributed to the story, I think it's a big yes. But
Okay.
for everybody else, I think that because of how provocative the storytelling is and whatnot, and the disadvantages that we're able to portray in the film, I think that a lot of kids are gonna feel the resurgence of what once was and try to bring it back in
Okay.
hopefully the most cultivated, responsible way.
Okay. And also, what was it like having interaction with Fred Hampton Jr., who, in a sense, went through some of the same things that his father went through in terms of being set up to go to jail?
Hmm.
And I can imagine him on set seeing his parents that he never got a chance to see together. So I imagine that would be just a very weird feeling for him. You want to kind of, talk about that a little bit?
Um, yeah, I mean, all of us were worried about it because you
Yeah,
don't want to put somebody through that sort of trauma.
yeah,
I mean, somebody that was there physically, like Mama could,
yeah,
but also, you know, Chairman Fred's son who was fatherless for so, I mean, for so many wrong reasons.
right,
And so it was one of those heartbreaking things to watch, but it was one of those things to where working with them and speaking to them and knowing that we were doing this with the right intentions,
right,
I think it helped. I think it helped him in a way, but I think more than that, he knows that it's helping everybody in the community.
right,
And
right,
so working with him at times got super difficult because we're trying to do things in a storytelling way and in a way that like all the words were not always there and whatnot, or we had to change the emotions of what someone might do or who someone might have been for legal reasons and whatnot. Just a bunch of different like cadences that naturally someone who wanted the privilege of fully telling it their way would just say, nah, man, we're doing it this way.
right,
So we were nervous a lot. And a lot of the time, the conversations would spike up and down and no one knew what to expect or how we could potentially fully like move forward in the right way where everybody felt comfortable. But it was one of those things to where in the end, like we all grew so much as family that it
right.
wasn't so much of a film set. We still connect with each other and talk today.
Okay.
I'm still in conversation with Blair Anderson. We
Oh yeah,
talk.
yeah,
Uh, we've been talking every day for the past 3 days and whatnot. And he's been kind of like transparent with his perspective of the movie too, and he loves it. But it's one of those trauma situations to where it's hard for the people that actually went through it, and I think that that's going to be the difference between the the generation gaps of what happened then and what's happening today. I think a lot of kids might be like, man, they really went at it with these guns, man, these Panthers, and they might elaborate on that part instead of like the introverted stories and perspectives.
right.
But I have a lot of faith in Will Burson, who is one of the writers. I have a lot of faith in the Lucas brothers, Ryan Coogler, Shaka, Charles King,
Okay,
who's an exceptional producer who's done a lot of black and brown stuff
okay,
for the privilege of black and brown folks. And I think that bringing Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. to set and having these conversations very diligently
right.
made it the only way we can make this project possible.
Okay,
I don't think anybody would have felt comfortable if we
okay.
hadn't done that. But I think it just benefited everybody to have a little more knowledge of what it meant to be a revolutionary with that kind of background.
Okay. And a little more about you personally in terms of your journey toward filmmaking. I think it was Pablo Picasso who once said, our goal in life is to discover our gift. Our purpose in life is to give it away or share it. When did you first discover your gift for filmmaking?
Um, when I was super young, I guess when I was a teenager, I I joined the gang and we'd go stealing from stores and
Right.
selling stuff and doing a whole bunch of different things. But one activity we did was we'd go to the local mall out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and all of my friends would go steal things from stores. But the only thing I went for was cameras to
Oh,
document stuff,
oh, okay. All
and
right.
I would steal Kodak cameras, like the little instant snap ones,
Yeah.
or disposable ones. But I I was told by a doctor that I had this slight memory loss disorder,
Mm,
and that I had also had a bunch of other attributed uh, things to go along with my mental health. And I felt like it would best serve me to start documenting things, anything that I could potentially forget. And as time went by, it seemed like it was helpful. But I went from pictures to videos as technology got more innovative, and I continued to just film my friends and their stories
right.
and try to get a better understanding so that I can show people, hey, I know someone like you in your situation that got out,
Okay. All
or,
right.
you know, vice versa. This is what can happen if you go down this road. And
Okay.
so it was pretty much inspired to like promote education from a super early age, but also in an introverted way of being like, I simply want to remember as much shit as I can.
Okay, all right, and that kind of reminds me of someone like a Gordon Parks Jr., who was a legendary filmmaker back in my time, back in the early '70s. He was a photographer that went naturally into the progression of film. You know, from
Mm.
still pictures and images to moving pictures. You know, that old Metro Golden Mayer, big Hollywood budget stuff where,
Okay.
you know, simply put, it seemed like a natural progression from photography to filmmaking, from still pictures to moving pictures. Would you say that's kind of the gist of what really inspired you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially today, as soon as I found out I can make these pictures move and people
Right,
can speak for themselves, and I wasn't about to have to explain nobody's perspective from a still picture and be like, he used to be like, nah,
right.
let him tell it, you know? It's a lot easier, but you could be a lot more transparent. And I think that gives us an opportunity to like, you know, help more people out. Like I look forward to potentially having the opportunity to interview you,
Okay, yeah,
having
right
the
on.
opportunity to
Anytime.
interview Blair, but I want to do like short documentary narratives to where we have, you know, the background and the atmosphere that speaks to that person's character and stuff like that. But a picture can only do so much versus what
Right.
somebody can as far as being transparent for themselves with themselves.
Okay.
So
And tell my viewers about Street Creatives. Tell us about that company and your involvement in it.
oh man, I appreciate that.
No doubt.
Street Creatives is a company I started about 3 years ago, and it was a company I started with three people, just me and three people, and we'd go out and shoot these stories predominantly on gang members,
Okay.
revolutionaries, sex workers,
Right.
and oppressed people. But I I started it to kind of push a film narrative of transparency to the fullest potential, like just giving people an opportunity to tell their story the way that they wanted without me directing it and
Okay.
without me uh, kind of even putting polishes on it, and just leaving really raw and edited clips of people speaking on their experiences and whatnot. And Street Creatives is now developed into like a YouTube channel and a podcast and um, uh, a website. The Street Creatives website is just www.streetcreatives.com, and on there we got a bunch of content from the Brown Berets out here, from the
Okay.
Levantine Lions, which is a Palestinian group that does food programs. I
Okay.
work with the homeless youth shelter out here. Just a bunch of projects that are community oriented and developed as far as resources. I'm trying to maximize the trajectory of who sees them and how beneficial they are. So I
Okay.
built Street Creatives to be kind of a hub for that and get more contributors to it. So I look
Okay.
forward to having people that are writers, that are videographers, photographers, or just have old stories that can contribute to the site in the future once it's more developed and whatnot. But it's basically just a website to kind of push the narrative of being innovative, creative, and kind of transparent person about your growth process.
Okay. And I saw some very impressive things in terms of some of the cinematography, the editing recommendations, you know, how you put together a film on that. And it's just an amazing, you know, especially at your age, because, you know, in my perspective, you're a very young brother and you already got, I didn't get half the stuff done that you already have accomplished. So does that come from? Is it a family drive? Is it something that someone you looked up to? How what really motivates you, brother?
Well, I gotta say that the first is probably the way that I grew up. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I wasn't always super close with my parents. We
Okay.
had a lot of separation and stuff like that. By 15, I was pretty much living by myself and looking forward to getting emancipated. I was in gangs. I was a punk rocker. I used to hop on trains to travel to get out of town. And I just wanted a whole bunch more experience in life and whatnot. And more than that, I wanted answers to why family members had become addicts, why fathers had been jailed and locked up, why life was so hard, why housing was so expensive, why food stamps didn't cover the food in the house, why all these things naturally didn't make sense. And I was upset with the world. And to vent, I kind of like just went full on revolutionary as much as I possibly could.
Okay.
I built food programs off the drug money that I had. I bought a whole lot of guns. I took all my old street gang members from everything from MS-13, the JMV, the Bloods, and the Crips. We all like made this Rainbow Coalition a foundation, and it seemed innovative. But while I was doing that, I had a daughter, and that's my daughter that's 14 years old. Yeah. So I became a father. I found out that, you know, I kind of want to be everybody's dad in a way. I just want to help out and guide people in the most structured, beneficial way to resolve current problems that we have. And so a lot of it was just to thrive off of being resilient and being persistent about making change when people said there wasn't no change to be made. Wow. So I think that that's the motivation. Everybody talking about they can't. I want to be a living example that you can literally go from being like homeless, living on a rooftop all by yourself in the cold of the winter, to, you know, exploring ways to tell narrative stories in a Hollywood industry that wasn't built for you.
Wow.
So I think that that's my thrive. That's what I thrive on.
And one of the things as soon as you were talking about, you know, some of your gang background, I thought of Bunchy Carter. You know, I think, like I say, you probably were familiar with him beforehand, but he was someone who also was part of that. You know, he was a Slauson gang member who turned into revolutionary. And matter of fact, there was a film starring, well, I should say a series starring David Duchovny, rather, I think his name is. And there was a character in the movie that was named Bunchy Carter that showed from the gang to the Nation of Islam to the Black Panther Party. So again, you really kind of give me that kind of feel in terms of the evolution of a revolutionary and someone that also is involved in content creation. So I really get that sense from you. Would you say that's correct?
That. Yeah. I wouldn't even fully know. After reading that article that you wrote, I was just so ridiculously impressed by his story. As I've been with, Blair Anderson, his story is crazy, amazing too, from the Stones to the Panthers and whatnot. We got a lot of the same background with some of our war wounds and whatnot. I mean, both of us have gunshot wounds and whatnot from different pieces in our past and stuff like that. So it's one of those things that's inspiring, but I hope that it transpires into today's generation so that they can know, like, man, we're still here and we exist, but we didn't have to go out like that per se. And I think that it's super important to acknowledge the truth in those structures sometimes.
Absolutely.
We don't always got to be the very, very best people. I mean, at times today, I still tell people that I'm still currently a gang member because I ain't leave those hoods mentally. I still go back and try to figure out resources physically, but also I check in with my people.
There you go. Yeah, that's what's up. Definitely. Yeah, and tell me something in terms of street creators. What future projects do you have going on that you could let people know about?
I plan on putting together a documentary. It's a Rainbow Coalition documentary. We started this Rainbow Coalition maybe about a year ago out here, a year and a half ago, maybe about a year and a half ago, because a little bit before we started the film and whatnot, but where we started bringing the Brown Berets, the Black Riders Liberation Party, the Black Panthers, Levantine Lions, and this group, Rose City Barber Boys, this white group. We've been bringing these groups together to defend Black and Brown businesses, but also to bring together resources for COVID, to bring together resources to fix our credit, to bring more financial equity and whatnot. So each of these groups do something in this particular field. And I plan on putting out this documentary about Portland's political atmosphere and what the growth process has been during the protests and everything that's been going on. But it's going to be with each of those groups, and it'll be out on Street Creatives, either in segments and series formats where each of those groups will have their own series, or it'll just be one long thing all the way through, kind of explaining the structure of like each of these political movements and how their organizations operate to bring progress to the people in their communities.
Oh, right on, right on. Well, brother, you are definitely someone that has impressed me tremendously. You're not only a revolutionary, but you're an artist, not for the artist's sake, but an artist for the people's sake, which is very important. And I want to say, how can people reach out to you, follow you on social media, and also support your company?
To reach out to me and find me on social media, just look up Das Leune, DASLEUNE.
Okay.
And to support the company, check out any content that says Street Creatives or Young Lawless America.
Okay.
Because if you check out any of that content, the most helpful thing you can do is hit me up with some constructive criticism or a contribution to the benefit of the infrastructure.
Oh, right on.
And that could be monetarily, or that could be, just words of acknowledgement, anything, but anything that you could potentially think of that's easy for you to do to help contribute, just do that. Hit me up and check out the content and let me know ways that we can help your community grow.
Oh, right on, man. And that sounds wonderful, brother. And anything I can do in terms of information or stuff from history, I call myself a historian in a sense,
You
and
sure are.
especially about the L.A. legacy of the Panther movement. I'm very up on. And again, brother, I really appreciate you coming on, man. And I definitely wish you, great success as we move forward. And anything you need, you just got to hit me up, brother.
Hey, you too. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, bro. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you and sincerely thank you for having me on. And anything you need or any resources that I can provide, please feel free to hit me up. I really appreciate you, bro.
Well, thank you so much, brother, and I'll
No,
definitely
no.
get back with you, and we'll be hearing from you soon, brother.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, all
All
power
power
to
to
the
the
people.
people.
Yes, sir.